So to hoop this, I have a ironing board here because I have most of this draped over a table, and then I have my ironing board here in front. But I don't want to hoop on the ironing board. It's just not, firm enough. So I just put a big cutting board. I bought this cutting board specifically for sewing or possibly, ironing, bringing it anywhere I want and using it as a surface that, is firm. So I slid that under the quilt. Probably need to pull the quilt. Now I can pull the quilt because it's mostly quilted there, and it stopped quilting here, but that's fine. And I'm going to push it back. So this is all quilted, so it'll be so easy. I want to really make this an exact hooping because I cut my applique kind of too big, really. But oh well. So since I have to be really exact, I'm going to have to use my template that goes inside the hoop, the one that's bent up on the sides and trimmed top and bottom by a little bit. And so I'll line up this crosshair with the crosshair on the design template. Now remember, the center is right there because I have antennas coming up off of that. And I'm going to just take my quilt and turn it 180. So I'm still going to line up my crosshair and have my arrows pointing upward on this hoop template. These arrows here, and put it on that crosshair this way now. If I can see. So I have tape there, there, and down here. For the inner ring, and we have our tape on 4 sides, our double-sided tape. The arrows are pointing up, and I'll line up these crosshairs, or these little notches, the center notches, with the crosshair on the hoop template, especially since my fit here isn't as snug as like an AccuFill would be, but it's good enough. Press down, and now all of this here is quilted, so I can just come in from the bottom. My ring is there. Slide that on, and I like hooping on this table because it's so slippery. I kind of went too far. Okay, if there's a gap here, I press. And I see if I can put these 2 sides down, and I can. So then I hold this bottom left and do this corner. Walk myself around and do been going like this just to make sure, and then press that corner. That's been happening where it pops up, but it's okay. Goes right back down. And now I usually do recess the upper right first because it always seems to be the tightest, and then the upper left. So these have to be flush, the inner and the outer ring. That's when you know you've recessed it enough. And it sticks out 1/8 of an inch on the bottom. I'll do this one now since it's the loosest one. Ouch. And then that one. So that's good. And this didn't even move. That's good. So now that it's hooped, I can take this out. Remember, I have tape here and here. I'll hold my hand in the center and lift this corner. It's almost caught underneath the hoop, but it's okay. So that bottom one is released. And then I'm going to put my hand on the fabric to release that one. And then the same thing here. I got a little bit of a pucker there, but I'm only stitching right here and here, so it's fine over there. Okay, so now it's going to be a lot easier to go in the machine. So still want to be careful. I don't want my table to hit this. That's why I have this shelf liner here now. Make sure it's closed so that I don't bang into that. God. So now this is going to be easy to put in. So I'm just going to roll it towards me. A lot of excess there. This quilt is growing. So I'll pull this back, and I'm going to push this sides under. The left side has a lot of thickness. The right side doesn't have. So I'll get it started, and then I'll finagle my fabric. So I'm going to bring the excess corners up on the table, and then pull up these sides so that I can pull up the back. And the left side is particularly thick. So you can see this here is very thick because, you know, I'm on the opposite side, so all the excess is here, and this has to be brought up right here. This has to be brought up. So to bring that up, you have to pull more out of this area here. And once it's free in the back, everything looks like, you know, I have clearance. Then I can push it in the rest of the way. Boy, that's really, I'm really pushing it. So I got it in. Now this tightness here is okay because it's going to keep everything steady, actually. And I am folding it, rolling it towards me as well. But that'll be fine. And remember, I was, my new way of doing this is to make a little canal in front of the hoop. So I'll pull the table away and make a little canal, and then the machine can move around. And I don't know if you could see this, but I'm going to take this excess and drape the corner on top of the table. So I just draped it on top of the table there. So, and I'm going to move the machine or the table just slightly over here to get most of this weight. So I think we should be good. So now I'm going to assign my needles for the design. If I hit this button here, I can see what's highlighted. That's my crosshair. And I always like the crosshair to be on needle number 1, and it is. But let's go into the needle assignment screen, this manual assignment. And we do want to put a stop on this crosshair just to remind me that I don't have to stitch it. We're just tracing it when we do our rotation. So that's done, and we'll go to the next needle. So that's the die line. And I am going to have my die line stitch on needle number 2 because I have bright blue thread. So that's fine. But we for sure want it to stop after it stitches the die line. So we put a stop on it. So now it'll stitch the die line and then stop. And then our next color or object is the design. And I want that to stitch on needle number 1. And we don't have to worry about stopping or anything because the design is done. It's going to make a basting stitch, jump to the start. It's going to stitch this antenna and come back. So it's double stitching. Stitch this one, come back. Stitch the outer blanket stitch down. Make one of these loops here. Stitch the inner one and then finish the rest of this loop. Tie off and then jump. So let's see. And so I don't have to pull up a bobbin thread or anything, but I have to check for center and rotation. So remember, to check for center, we use these jog buttons to get our needle in the center of our crosshair on our design template. First, what I wanted to do, and I forgot to mention this, is you want to go into the Ready to Sew screen. Just, press that button so it says Ready to Sew. So now we'll check for center and rotation. So I could just lock it down and check that way, but I want to be exact. So I'm going to dial the hand wheel clockwise about 15 minutes, and that'll allow me to get this needle farther down than just locking it down. And if you turn the hand wheel now, before you would lock it down, it's easier to move the hand wheel. So I'm going to go like 15 minutes. And basically, what I'm looking for is this take-up lever to come all the way down, basically. So I'm going to dial this down. So it's all the way down. And now I'm going to see if I'm in the center or not. And I know you probably can't tell. So if you don't want to use your finger, you can use something wooden, like a wooden skewer. This one is thinner. It's from a clothespin. I just took it apart. And, oh, it's locking. So it's still locking. So let me dial it back. There. See how it's easier to move now because I dialed it back. So that moved a little bit up. So let's see if I'm in the center. So I'm going to bring it forward just like maybe 2 or 3 clicks, which is 0.3 mils. It goes 0.1 mil at a time. So this is the forward. Oh, needle bar, because I dialed it down, so you have to say okay. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the right because it looked like it needed to go to the right, the needle. I went like 5. So I have to dial down again. Try not to go as far. It looks like I'm right on center. So now I'm going to check for rotation. So to check for rotation, you want to fast forward through your crosshair. So you use this button. And when I hit this F button, the design will go to the beginning of the crosshair, the vertical part of it. So I'm going to hit the F button. Oh, since I dialed down, I get that warning. When I hit OK, you'll see that the take-up lever puts itself in position. That's good. So the needle doesn't penetrate or anything. It's just the take-up lever gets put into position. So now I'll hit the F button to go to the beginning of my crosshair. Oh, I forgot. Because I rotated the design, the crosshair now is starting down here instead of at the top, which is fine. But I don't have any template here. So if I would have printed this on a clear vinyl, then I would have seen the crosshair. It would have extended all the way up here. I would have seen everything so much more clearly. I would have seen my antenna and everything. And if I like this design, I will maybe print it on a clear vinyl. But if you recall, I made this one a little too big for this block. So I don't know what I want to do going forward. So anyway, so I'm going to hit the F button to fast forward a little more through this cross here, this button here, so I can get on the template. And let me see if I can get down farther. I'll lock it down. Okay, so I'm on the template now, so let's see. So right now, it looks like my needle is not, it's fine. It's not left, it's not right of the vertical crosshair, it's right on it. Which means as I fast forward more to the top, it's probably going to be fine. So let's hit the F button. It's slightly to the right. I mean, I don't know. Let's see. Sometimes you got to get right in front of it. And I could dial it down, but I think I'm going to let it go because the rotation is so slight. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I will rotate it 1 degree counterclockwise because you could see the needle is to the right of the crosshair. So in other words, here we go again. If the needle were a spinner on a game board, then to the right of the vertical would look like that. So it's to the right of the vertical up there, which means it's going to be to the left of the vertical down there. And to get it vertical, we have to spin the needle, hence the design, counterclockwise. And I'll just go 1 degree. So I'll leave that there to kind of show us. So we go into menu, edit, rotate, counterclockwise, and this will change from, well, now it's saying 180 because we flipped it 180. So if we're going counterclockwise, it'll say 179 because we're going backwards. So 1 degree counterclockwise, and that says 179. And hit OK. Now it went back to the hoop template center, not the design template center, but rest assured our settings for when we moved these jog buttons, our settings are still being held on the edit screen. It's just, it does this. I don't know why. But anyways, so now if I fast forward through the crosshair, I have to fast forward a little bit more. So it looks like it's right on, and it's right on there. So we're right dead on. So we're good. So we're done with the crosshair and we're done with the template. So we can remove our template. And now that the template's removed, I'm going to do a needle down or a trim so that the thread gets caught in the thread catcher. But I'm going to actually pull some thread out just to make sure that when it cuts it, push back the tension lever. And I like to grab thread from up here and pull down because my tension is so cranked up and I don't want to bend my needle. But I'll put it in the spring and then hit the trim button here because I want a consistent, okay, so this was cut. I want a consistent length in the thread catcher. So now that we're done with the crosshair and we're ready to stitch our die line, we just need to fast forward past the crosshair. Now it doesn't show anymore what's stitching. We have to hit this button here. So it's still on the crosshair because it came back to the ready to sew screen and it just reset itself as far as this goes. But rest assured the edit screen is holding both of our jog button settings and our rotation. So let's fast forward past the crosshair with the thread plus, and then our die line will stitch. And our die line is going to stitch with needle number 2, so I don't really care if I do a trim on that. And my die line, I do have a tie on, I believe, but it's not a big one. And you'll notice I have a gap here. There's no die line in this area here because there's too much going on there and I didn't want it to interfere with my stitching, you know, the antenna and everything. So, and the die line is 2 millimeters, 2 millimeters expanded from the edges of the cut file. So 4 millimeters total. All right, so I'm just going to hit the start button, pull tension release lever. So I'll hit the start button. I get the warning. Some people don't get a warning because they don't have it set to get a warning in their settings, but I have mine set to do so. And then I'll just hit it again. So that was like 3 or 4 tie-ons for this die line, so it's not much. And the stitch length is 4 millimeters, just so it's easy to remove when we're all done. And I like to be able to see my die line so that I can put my 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I must not have taken them all off at the end, but that's okay. I can get that out, no problem. So now I want to tack on I have to get my iron, my little mini iron hot. I have to tack on my applique that I cut, and remember I glued it here and here with that template before, and this has heat and bond light on it, and so does this. So I couldn't press this because then this would get gooey and ruined. So that's why I had to use regular glue for when I put this on with that template. But here's the thing, I have to get to this, and I don't want to take this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my crosshair, to the part of the crosshair that goes way in the back here. So remember, it's the vertical crosshair starts here and then goes back. So I'm going to go back to the crosshair. Now, since I'm at the beginning of the red, I think I can hit the reverse button. It'll take, well, it's going to do the whole horizontal. I'll just go back. Okay, and then I'll just fast forward. I'll hit the F button to get to the bottom of the crosshair. So I'm hitting the F button because I want that hoop to come forward. Oh, I held it down too long. Okay. And you can actually take one of these and put it underneath the hoop. My free arm is right here. So that would mean that I can't iron that tip. So, and this is what's tricky. First, I'm going to iron these parts, and then I'll pull it forward. But you have to remember to push it back. So, so I'm going to get these in line, and I want to be able to see. And you can use the school glue, you know, Elmer's school glue, to tack this down, even at this point, because it's washable. The Elmer's washable. But you just want it to be even on all sides. And that looks good. That looks good. So before I put this under it, I'm going to just tack down these areas up here. And I'm going to wing it without the school glue. And to tack these down, they say to press for 6 seconds. So I almost feel like I want to go a little there. I'm going to go for it. 4, 5, 6. Okay, I might be a little bit too far away over here, to be honest. So I probably messed it up. But oh well. So now I'm going to put this underneath. Well, I'm actually going to pull it out a little bit. And you can reheat it and lift it up and re-glue it, but I'm not going to. It's fine. So I pulled it out a little bit, and now I'm going to put this pad underneath. I'm kind of bummed out that I don't have it pulled over enough over there, but oh well, I screwed up. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's not going to be perfect, but oh well. It's close enough. So that's that. And so now I'm going to let that cool for a few minutes. Actually, while it's cooling though, I kind of didn't want it, you know, pushed back in by the arm. Maybe I should make myself a warning sticker and put it on my machine. So there, I put that on there. And so maybe I'll have this taped to my machine, you know, so that when I do this ironing, you know, I can readily put this on right away, something. Although this is a Sharpie, I don't want the black, the heat from the applique to make Sharpie go on my quilt. I don't know. So it should be cool enough. It's fine. So I'll go ahead and push in these arms. And so now I'm ready to stitch the design. And remember, I already did the trimmer on, I already hit the trimmer for needle number 1. But I'm on the crosshair right now. And I could have made my crosshair bigger. So we're on the crosshair, and I want to get to this color here, the very last color. So I'm just going to hit the needle minus, will take me to the last one, since I'm on the first one. Not needle minus, thread minus. So there it's starting way up here, because it's going to stitch a basting stitch and then jump to stitching the antennas first. Not sure if I should have done it that way, but, you know, instead of maybe doing this first, but we'll see how I like it. So I'm just going to hit start. Machine starts to run, and then hit start again. See how there's no tie on, but there's a tie on for the antenna. And there it is, stitching right out in plain view like I wanted. I got a little loop there, but it's going to stitch over itself, so maybe it'll cover that up. If not, I can fix it. Yeah, I'm going to have to fix that. Okay, so far it's looking good, the blanket stitch. And it looks even good over there where I got worried. It's perfect. I don't know if I could get closer here. And you'll notice that 2mm gap between the die line and the stitching is perfect because, you know, we can easily take it out. And you can see it, and, you know, it's just better. I hate it when somebody digitizes an applique and then when you place your cut file over it, you can't see the die line. I mean, what is the sense of that? I mean, that's for people who actually cut it at the machine, you know, after it stitches the tack down. But for us people who have a cutting machine, we have to see the die line so that we can be exact. And 1mm gap was just not enough. Now let's see how good I did on this. Oh, it's good. This is a real test because it's a red fabric with gold thread. Oh my God. I better be careful. That take-up lever is going to hit me right in the eye. It's right on. And on this applique, I made my stitch length, or my width of the blanket stitch 5mm. So those little lines that are coming into the red are 5mm long. Now my stitch length is the distance between each of those lines, and I left that at 3.0 mils, the same as the butterfly. I just figured if you make it 5 mils, you know, it has so much fabric to go through, you know, in a quilt, that it's really not 5 mils when all is, and there's its tie off, and then it jumps. I didn't need that many jumps. Oh, I forgot to take off the tie off on that ending. I hate that, but you know, I'll fix it. Well, I can't believe I did it. Oh my God, let's see this. Let's see. Oh my God, it's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. I'm so excited. I love applique. Oh, and I got a loop there, but I can fix that. I'll show you how to fix loops. And I talk to people with Berdens and Tajimas, and they all say that everybody gets loops. I mean, this is a lot of fabric we're going through, and my needle might be dull, to be honest. So, oh, it's so pretty. It is so pretty. That is the most beautiful heart. I redid that heart so many times to get it to be exactly perfectly perfect. So, yeah, I'm not happy about that, making such a big tie off. And then the first one up here didn't tie on at all, so I can just stick my tweezers under the loop of thread. So this one did good. And then there is a seam, so it's hard to pull this. When that happens, you can hold one end, you know, with your finger and the other end with your other finger and just pull up. And that'll pull it out of there without you damaging your fabric. You could just pull that. There's the bobbin thread. So there's my tail. It's a good 4 inches. So I'll bring that to the back and bury it with the bobbin thread. This one, though, I have to remember to remove that tie off. And how do I like this up here? Yeah, I like doing the antenna first because then the blanket stitch goes over the antenna stitches. So I'm going to leave that. So really the only thing I have to worry about is this, removing this tie off. I thought I did, but I probably forgot. Well, I obviously forgot. So I'm just gonna cut it and go to the back. So I'll just cut it here because I'm going to the back anyways, right? And I'll take that out with my thread ripper in the back though. Now here, I just want to be careful. And I'm not using my thread ripper to do this anymore because that could be deadly. Okay, and so I have this long tail. So both of these tails will be fed to the back. And I'm going to put both of them in the same existing hole, a hole that's already in the design. That's just for when you feed it. When we tie it off, we have to make a new hole. But for this step, we go in an existing hole. And I'll get that loop when we're all done. And I'll take out these stitches from the back as well. So, oh my God, I just love that. That just makes my day. I was worried it wouldn't be pretty. Is that a loop? Oh, you know what it looks like? It is a loop. So I have a loop there and one there. That's fine. I don't use that needle that everybody has. I've got 2 of them. I don't use them anymore for loops because they cut your thread. You know, the one with that rough, it has that roughness. No, I don't do that. So I'm going to just hold the threads out of the way and find the hole that they both came out of, or one of them came out of, which is right here. You can see it's just a huge hole. And get my hand under the hoop, push the needle in a little bit, snap in my threads, both of them. Pull out some slack. You don't have to pull out slack because as you go down, it makes its own. We're only going straight down, so you don't really have to. I forgot to check the back to make sure I was in the right spot, but I think I am because, you know, you could tell I went right in that hole. It was huge. Not huge, but, you know, I could tell I was in the right spot. So now I have 4 threads here to bury. I'm going to bury 2 at a time. So I don't know which one goes to which. Oh, this is that bobbin thread that I have to release. So I'm going to get my thread ripper for that. I have to fix that. There. Okay. I don't know which goes with which, but I'm going to pull them all just to make sure they're nice and tight. That one I felt it pull a little better. So I don't know. I'm going to just take 2 and I'll make a a knot, and usually I can stick my thumb inside the loop and pull that out, but this one's going to be too short to do that. So, and I want to take it towards the stitching, this string. I want to hold it towards the stitching that I'm going to go under. So I'll go under this antenna maybe. Well, no, maybe I'll go, yeah, it'll be easier. So I'm going to hold this thread towards this stitching and stick my needle in the loop 1/4 inch away from where it came out of and pull it tight. Pull the needle out. There's my knot. And now I'm going to go in a new hole underneath a stitch, not in a stitch penetration, but underneath a stitch. I got my hand under, my finger under the hoop. Make sure I'm just going more than 1/4 inch because your knot is 1/4 inch. And I can feel that I'm good. I didn't penetrate. And I didn't. And then I grab the 2 threads and snag them. And I push it back, get my fingernail under there and push it forward to get some slack. And I pull some slack, push it in. And then while it's still doubled up, I snap it in. There, I heard it snap. I just feel like it's stronger when it's doubled. And then I slant my needle as I pull on the thread. And then this one's going to be harder, and I'm going to try and do it in the manner that, with the tweezers, like the pros do, which I still can't quite grasp. So I grab it, come down, maybe turn it, pivot it, and then bring these threads. Maybe you're supposed to use your finger and then grab it. So I slid the tweezer in. That's kind of a short bobbin thread. So I want to make sure they're both even in the loop. So I'm going to just stick the tweezer in the loop 1/4 inch away and then pull it out. I believe this was the beginning bobbin thread. So for me, that's just too much work. It's too short. So I'm going to have to make the beginning longer, or I could technically pull out some, pull my bobbin thread to the top, pull out some thread and hold it really tight and just let it stitch. Then I'll have a long thread. But then you have to make sure that you manage that long thread. Once you pull it out and start your stitches, you kind of have to stop the machine and maybe tape your threads like right here in the center or something, because you do want to manage them. You don't want them to be in the way of this stitching. So just something to think about. So then I'm going to go in, I'll go under this other one. Oh, I'm really far away. I don't know if I should be that far away. I'll never get that little thread out. I'm going to need my needle nose pliers for this one. I better check because knowing me, okay, I'm good. And now I'm going to snap it while it's doubled up. And you know, you have a hold of the needle and everything, so it's just better. Okay, so now we'll trim that, slant my scissor. When you're pulling out the die line, that you're pulling the die line and not the other stitches. So since my die line is blue, I think I'm going to use the thread ripper from the front so I know exactly what I'm ripping. And you can rest assured that it's not going to damage your existing quilting because it's stitching on top of the existing quilting. And up here there's like barely a tie on and a tie off. I used to have a pair of, or a seam ripper where this was curved up. I don't know why they don't make them like that anymore. Maybe they were too expensive. So let's go to the back. Now I just pulled it from the other side. So. Okay. Okay, and you can use a piece of tape to get all these remnants off. You know, it'd be a lot quicker. I just don't want to waste any tape for that. Okay. That is so pretty from the back even. The little antennas. Oh my gosh. Okay, so now let's adjust the loops. So loops is basically like burying a thread. So you want to get out the same color thread, and I'll just use my bobbin color. My bobbin color thread is slightly different, but it's basically the same. Usually about 10 inches is good. You get your snagget needle. And you snag the top with the thread. And you look at your loop. Now this loop is really big. So I know that when I feed this to the back, I'm going to have plenty to bury. So I can make a knot on the top of this loop now if I want. Or I could wait till I take it to the back and decide how I want to proceed. But I'm just going to take my needle and put it through the loop. Hold one of the thread tails and keep pulling until the other thread tail, oops, try it again. Okay, put it through the loop. Hold one of the thread tails and pull to get the other thread tail out. And then make sure that both thread tails now are in the needle. This one's not. So you can just basically take them both out and put them in at the same time. Sometimes that's easier. And then you just feed through one of the stitch points of this loop. So I'll just go in the one that looks easier, because right now we're just feeding it to the back. And before I put it all the way and pull on it, I'm going to just pull on the slack. Before I put the needle all the way in, I'm going to look at the back and make sure that I'm on the design correctly. And it looks good. It's coming up correctly. So I'll just push it through. And okay, so now you can see I have that loop. And like I said, I could have made a knot around it when I was up there, because basically I'm just going to bury it like I would the thread tails. I'm going to make a knot 1/4 of an inch away. Well, this is already a small 1/4 of an inch. The loop is. So I'm just going to make a knot on the loop. This one was easy. The bigger the loop, the easier they are, actually. Okay, so now I have a knot on there. So now I'm just going to go underneath the stitch next to it. Or I could go underneath this one that's sticking out. I don't know which one I want to go under. Maybe I'll go under the one next to it. Make sure you're not coming through on the other side, and I'm not. Snag both threads. Push this back, and then get my fingernail, push it forward, pull out some slack. Now, I am going to make sure, just because you never know. You get so confident and then you turn it around and okay, so now I can pull this through, and I didn't hear it snap in. So, I mean, it is in there, but I don't know. I hope it's okay. Now, I could have come up through, you know, another stitch point, because then I could have just did the burying all over again. But I came up in the middle like a dummy. So if I did want to redo this again, I have to feed this. And there, I have a tool for this to pull the thread through. I thought I did. So let me just see if I can get this. Because you want to go in the same hole that they came out of, because I screwed up. I didn't get close to a stitch point because I didn't think I'd make a mistake. So there, now I'm right at a stitch penetration. So let me snag it. And hopefully it's going to disappear over there. If not, I screwed up. Okay, it disappeared. So now here I am, and I'll twist my finger and put my thumb in, pull the thread, grab the loop, and then I'll put my needle in 1/4 of an inch away,